All right, hey students, this is a demo for Painting 1. So in class, for some of you, we walked through paint consistency, including impasto, the thicker paint right out of the tube, medium, which is adding a little bit of water, a wash, which is adding even more water, and then a second wash with more water that ends up being sort of a watercolor paint consistency. We are also working on values, understanding tints, which is the hue plus white, shades, which is the hue plus black, and then also changing the value using the complement. So here mixing orange and blue. So make sure on your watercolor paper you have set up 4 squares to do the paint consistency. You can just do one color for that. And then for values, you'll want to have a row under tints for orange plus white, and then another row for blue plus white. And I'm going to go over the blues in this demo. The shades, you'll want to have a row of 6 squares again for orange plus black, and then another 6 squares for orange plus, or blue plus black, excuse me. Mixing with the complement, you want to have 6 squares for orange plus blue, and then another 6 for blue plus orange. I've outlined these all in Sharpie, just so you guys can see it better. You can just leave it pencil if you like. I've also done these fairly large, again, so that you all can see it. Your paper is going to be a little bit smaller than what I have here. So yours is 9 by 12, and then this one I think is like 12 by 20, something like that. All right, so I have gone ahead and scraped most of the paint off my palette. You can see that here. So now I can start with my blue paint. I just have a primary blue from the kit. I'm using the same stuff as you all. I'm going to squeeze out a little bit into one of these wells. And if you don't enjoy painting with this type of palette, you can also use whatever else you like. You can also get freezer paper, tape this onto a board, and use that. A lot of acrylic artists like to do that instead. And then I've got white to do my tints, and I've got my black to do my shades, and then I'm going to keep my orange handy as well. All right, and I have a cup set up here for cleaning my brushes and adding water. And I've got 2 paper towels. The way that I was taught works really well, and I found it to be true, is that you can set up with a paper towel here. So when I'm changing colors, can you guys see that? I can wipe off the excess paint here, go ahead and give my brush a rinse, and then I'm keeping my water a little bit cleaner. And then I can blot out the excess water, so I'm not watering down my paints too much. All right, so let's get going. I'm actually going to use up some paint that I have in a jar for the white. You're going to probably get some out of your tube. And you only need a little bit. You can mix your paints either with your palette knife. All right, I had a little interruption, so I'm not sure where we were at. So I'm sorry if it's not super clear. So I've got a little blue, a little white, and I'm going to get my paintbrush here, get a little water. I don't need a lot for medium consistency. And then I'm going to fill in my first squares here with that pure blue so we can see the difference. You just need enough water that your paint kind of goes on the paper pretty smoothly. You do not need to stay in the lines. Not going to lose points for that or anything. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm working on my tints. So I'm going to add a little bit of white. So I can take my palette knife, kind of work that in there. And a little bit of white goes a long way. So just kind of be careful with that. You don't need a lot. This is already very, very light. One thing you might notice is that as we painted over a lot of these, you can still see the black. If you have a lot of white in there, it might not be the case so much, just because the white is a little bit more opaque. These I colored over after the fact, so you can't really tell there. All right, so we've gotten just a little bit lighter. I can go ahead and scoop a tiny bit more white to mix in here. And you can mix with your brush as well. I just find it's nicer to mix with the palette knife because then I don't get my brush so saturated with the paint. It's a little bit easier to clean it later. Get a little bit of water in there. And if you're going through your value scale and you find that you want to have a little bit more differentiation, you can do a new one, a new square, just like glue it over the top. I know it's going to be like so exciting for you guys to watch me mix paint. But part of this is that I want you to see the effort that can be involved in doing this. I don't want you to expect that it's very instant. Now I have done this multiple times, so it might seem like it's going pretty quickly compared to what you end up experiencing. Because if you've never done this before, it's going to take a little bit longer to understand what's going on and how to do it. All right, so we got an even lighter. So I'm doing just a little bit at a time. I'm going to see if I can scooch this just a little bit closer. All right. All right, so if I don't think that that made enough difference, after this dries, I can go back over it. You might be able to even kind of go in there a little bit while it's still wet. There we go. All right, so this is mixing it with the paintbrush, which you certainly can do as well. My paint sat for a few minutes, so it was getting a little bit dry. All right, so hopefully you can see that change in the values. I realize this light is not on. That'll help you guys see it a little better. Going very gradually from this dark, really intense blue, lighter, lighter, till it gets this kind of pale baby blue. All right. It's smart to stop now and wash this brush. For the moment, I'm going to wipe off the excess paint, swish around. And you don't need to have anything fancy for your water dish, your water cup, whatever, just whatever works best for you, whatever you have. So if you don't have the other half of this toothbrush holder that was in the kids in the classroom, that's fine. You can also use like a yogurt cup or a jar. Glass jars is just, there's some olives in it. All right. Remember that you want to, when you're washing your brush, use a little bit of soap and make sure that all the studs end up colorless. So I've only rinsed this. This is not good enough. What'll happen here is there's still acrylic in it, and that will become like a hard plastic. You won't be able to get your bristles loose. It'll get very hard. So you need to wash it after each painting session. All right. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and just grab a different brush. Get a tiny bit of blue, and then a tiny bit of the black. If I can get it open. Right. All right, so I've got my pure blue on there already. So I can just go ahead and start mixing. With my palette as well as my palette knives, I can just scrape the paint off. I keep a trash can nearby. So I let the paint dry on this from my last session, and now I can just scratch it all off and not worry about it. All right, so I've got my blue, and then I'm gonna add just a little, like teeny tiny bit of black. Look at that, it's just tiny, hardly any at all. A little bit's gonna go a long way. If you need more, you can add more, but it's hard to go back the other way. So we'll see what kind of difference this makes in that little dot of blue. If you want, you can get yourself some clean water as well. All right, if I'm finding this doesn't make a big enough difference, I can add some more black, but it's really hard to get it lighter by adding more blue. All right, so I can do a little more. I like these palette knives that are just kind of like a little stick. I find that's really easy to work with. I might have gone too far. I think that's going to be a little too much, so I'm going to go one square over. Then maybe I can go back and mix one that's in between. So that's a big difference there, right? I can add a tiny bit more to that and see what we get. So as you're doing this, you are also experimenting, learning the medium. So don't feel like you have to do it all perfectly on the first go. All right, so getting very dark. It's difficult to get a lot of differentiation in the shades. So if you're struggling with that, it's normal. All right, because we're almost like looking totally like a black there. And on the orange, we had this happen as well. So if you can't get 6 shades, that's all right. But you should definitely be able to get 6 tints. And you need to remember what those terms mean as well. What is a tint? What is a shade? So I'm setting my palette knife here on my paper towel. I'm probably going to make sure to move that before the paint dries, or I end up with like paper towel stuck on my palette knife as well. All right, this has become almost totally black. That's how dark a blue it is now. All right. So that is the tints and shades. And then I think I'm going to stop this, get cleaned up, and then make a new video talking about mixing with the complement. All right, y'all. Thank you.